I never thought my life would take such a turn, but when Mrs. Caldwell knocked on my door with her usual air of urgency, I felt the chill of impending disaster. "Emily, dear," she whispered, her voice barely above a tremble, "you need to be careful. There are strange visitors at your place every Tuesday." Her eyes, wide with concern, bore into mine, and for a moment the world around us faded. "Strange visitors? What do you mean?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. I had always trusted my neighbors, but Mrs. Caldwell's warning felt like a stone dropped into still waters, disturbing and rippling outward. She described shadowy figures lurking outside my apartment at odd hours, always leaving just as quickly as they came. That night, unable to shake off the feeling of dread, I decided it was time to take action. My mind raced with possibilities, and the most logical step was to install a hidden camera. I enlisted help from my tech-savvy friend, Lauren. "It's just for peace of mind, I shrugged, trying to downplay my anxiety as we set up the device in the corner of the living room, aiming it toward the door. The following Tuesday felt like an eternity. I paced my apartment, glancing at the camera monitor every few minutes. When the day finally turned into night, my heart raced as I realized I was about to find out if Mrs. Caldwell's warning was just a figment of her imagination or something else entirely. Around 8 p.m., the moment I had dreaded, yet anticipated, arrived. The camera recorded the sound of my door creaking open quietly, and before I knew it, Lauren stepped inside. My heart sank. Why was she here? I had thought she was my closest confidant, but there she was, my so-called friend, slipping silently into my home as if she owned it. I leaned closer to the monitor, my breath caught in my throat as she moved about the living room. I watched in disbelief as she opened the cabinet and slipped an envelope inside. My envelope, the very one I had left on the table for my latest marketing push. The sight of her doing something so clandestine felt like a punch to the gut. When I confronted her the next day, I tried to keep my voice steady. "Lauren, I have some questions about last night." Her eyes widened, and she feigned innocence. "What do you mean? I just dropped by to check on you." "Check on me or check on my stuff?" I countered, my heart pounding as I held her gaze. "Emily, you're being paranoid." "Paranoid? I've got video evidence," I blurted out, and as her face paled, I knew I had struck a nerve. The days that followed were agonizing. I started observing both Lauren and my husband, Mark. I noted their exchanges, the subtle glances, and the way their laughter seemed to linger a little too long. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that gnawed at me. The two people I trusted most in my life were now shrouded in suspicion. Then, one fateful evening, I stumbled upon an email that would shatter any remaining illusions I had. Mark had mistakenly left his computer open at the dining table, and curiosity pulled me in. The subject line read, "Just Us," and my heart raced as I opened it. The words were a direct blow. He spoke of secret meetings, plans to escape the mundane trappings of our home life, and a closeness that hinted at something far more than friendship. A sickening feeling settled in my chest as I read on, realizing that my fears had been confirmed. Mark was having an affair with Lauren. I had never felt so alone, so betrayed. Seething with a mix of anger and heartbreak, I decided enough was enough. It was time for me to take control of my life again. I changed the locks on the apartment and installed a security system. I would no longer let them invade my space without my permission. Facing them again would be difficult. The confrontations brewed like a storm, but I knew I had to do it. I prepared myself for the inevitable showdown. When Mark walked through the door that evening, the tension was palpable. "Emily, what's wrong?" he asked, feigning ignorance as he slipped off his shoes. "Cut the act, Mark. I know about you and Lauren," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging. Inside me, he froze, and I could see the facade cracking. "You don't understand? I understand everything. I saw you together in my home, and I found the emails. You've betrayed me." In that moment, I felt a surge of empowerment. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me anymore. I would expose the truth, not just for myself, but for any other woman who had ever felt trapped by someone they loved. I realized then that the battle was just beginning, and I was ready to fight. The days dragged on, each one heavier than the last. As I sat in my living room, the shadows of betrayal loomed larger. The image of Lauren slipping through my door still haunted me. I shook my head, trying to dispel the memory, but it was etched deeply in my mind like a cruel joke. I had always trusted her. She was my confidant, my ally in a world that sometimes felt overwhelming. The thought of her betrayal was like a knife twisting in my gut. Determined to find the answers I sought, I staked out the apartment like a detective on a mission. I tried to act natural as I discreetly observed Mark and Lauren from a distance, hoping to piece together the extent of their deception. "Hey, Em, you coming to the party at Carol's this weekend?" Amanda, my closest friend, broke through my reverie as she plopped down on the couch beside me. I forced a smile. "Yeah, I'll be there," I said, though my mind was a million miles away. Amanda raised an eyebrow. "You okay? You seem, I don't know, kind of out of it." I sighed, biting back the urge to tell her everything. "Just a lot on my mind." "Want to talk about it?" she offered. "No, it's nothing I can't handle," I replied, pushing the thoughts of Mark and Lauren aside. For the moment, I wanted to savor the comfort of my friend's company. "I'm here if you need me," she said softly. After she left, my resolve returned, and I returned to my spying. I observed every little interaction Mark and Lauren had. Their casual laughter, the way they leaned into each other. It felt like a performance on a stage where I was no longer a part. I couldn't help but feel the outsider in my own life. One evening, while scrolling through my emails, I came across something that made my heart race. It was from Mark, sent late at night. I clicked it open with shaking hands. "Hey, Lauren, I can't stop thinking about you. Meeting at our place next Tuesday? I miss you." Sickened, I read the words over and over, the truth settling heavy in my stomach. My worst fears confirmed. The betrayal was deeper than I had imagined. I felt a mixture of anger and sadness wash over me. I was not going to be a victim. I was done with feeling powerless. I jumped up and paced around the room, adrenaline coursing through me. "No more," I whispered to myself. It was time to take back control. The next day, I called a locksmith and changed the locks on my apartment. The small act felt liberating, like shedding a layer of skin. I was reclaiming my space and my sense of safety. As I stood on my front porch, looking at my new locks, I felt a flicker of strength. I wouldn't let them take anything else from me. A few days later, the inevitable confrontation came. I texted Mark to meet me at home, my heart pounding as I prepared for the storm that was about to break. He walked in, a casual smile on his face that quickly dropped when he noticed the tension in the air. "Hey, what's up?" he asked, feigning ignorance, but I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "Why don't you sit down?" I said, my voice steady. He hesitated, but then obeyed, taking a seat on the edge of the couch. "Is everything okay?" "Hardly," I replied, crossing my arms. "We need to talk about Lauren." His face went pale. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, the words tumbling out all at once. "I saw her coming into our home, Mark. I found the email. How long has this been going on?" He stammered, trying to find the right words, but I wasn't giving him the chance. "Don't lie to me. I can't believe you would do this after everything we've built together." My voice rose, a mix of hurt and fury. "Emily, please," he started, but the plea fell flat against the weight of my anger. I turned to Lauren, who had just entered, and glared at her. "Did you think I wouldn't notice? Did you think this would go unanswered?" She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "Stay out of this. You don't get to play innocent when you've been in my home lying to my face." The confrontation became a tangled mess of accusations, each of us trying to cut through the other's defenses. They threw words like daggers, but I stood my ground, refusing to break. "Emily, I'm sorry," Mark finally said, but I could hear the lack of sincerity. "It's too late for that," I replied coldly. Without waiting for another word, I marched out of the room. I could feel the power shifting back into my hands, but it wasn't over yet. The real challenge awaited, the courtroom. But for now, I had finally spoken my truth. In the days that followed, I began planning for the next step. I made calls, reached out to support groups, and prepared myself to fight, not just for my rights, but for my own healing. I was determined to rise from the ashes of my betrayal and help others do the same. At the networking dinner, they ignored my business card until they saw my name on the stage banner. When I finally sat down at my kitchen table, the weight of the events from the past week crashed down on me. I stared at the envelope I had pulled from the drawer, the one that felt like a ticking time bomb. The silence of the apartment was deafening, punctuated only by the ticking of the clock on the wall, marking time I could hardly stand to endure. I could still see the footage from the hidden camera in my mind. Lauren, my so-called friend, casually strolling into my home like it was hers. I had trusted her. I had invited her into my life. And now I felt the sting of betrayal seep into every corner of my soul. I heard the door click behind me, and I turned to find Mark stepping into the room. His face was a mask of confusion, which only fueled my fire. "What's going on, Em?" he asked, feigning concern. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "You tell me, Mark. Who is she?" He stared at me, caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" "Come on, I have the email, Mark. You think I wouldn't check after all the strange things happening around here?" I leaned forward, my hands gripping the edge of the table. "Lauren? Really? My friend?" A flicker of guilt crossed his face, and I felt my heart race. "I can explain." "Explain? What's there to explain? You've already made your choices," I shot back, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and sadness. "You've betrayed me, both of you." His expression hardened. "Emily, this isn't fair. You don't understand." "Don't understand what? You think I don't know betrayal when I see it? I'll tell you what's unfair. It's unfair that I had to find out like this, sneaking behind my back." Forcing myself to keep my composure, I grabbed my phone and checked the time. I had a meeting scheduled with my lawyer shortly, and I needed to wrap this up before I faced the real battle ahead. "I'm changing the locks, Mark," I said firmly, trying to sound resolute despite the butterflies in my stomach. "I won't be your victim anymore." "You're overreacting. We can work through this," he insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. "Work through it?" I laughed bitterly. "You've ruined any chance of that. I need to protect myself. Our marriage has become a lie." With that, I turned away from him, my heart pounding. I wasn't ready for the confrontation to escalate, but I had to stand my ground. I had spent too long feeling like I was losing control. Later, as I sat in my car outside the lawyer's office, I took a deep breath to steady myself. The air felt thick and heavy, but I was determined. I thought about how many women had walked this path before me, sharing stories of heartache and betrayal, and how many had risen stronger. Join them. After the meeting, I walked out with a sense of purpose. My lawyer had shared some stories of other clients, women who had turned their lives around after similar betrayals. "There's always light after darkness," she had said, her voice calm and reassuring. As I approached my apartment, the sight of the unfamiliar locks caught my eye. It was a simple change, but it felt monumental. I was taking back the power that had slipped away from me. No more shadowy figures lurking in my home. No more secrets hiding behind my back. That evening, after locking my door against the world, I reached for my phone and called a few friends. "I need your help," I said, my voice steadying with each word. I shared the truth about Mark and Lauren, the betrayals that shook the foundation of my life. "I want to gather some women together, maybe start a support group, help each other through this." There was a pause, and then my friend Rachel spoke up. That sounds amazing, Em. You're not alone in this. I'm in. As we talked more, plans began to form. I felt a flicker of hope in my chest, a warmth that promised resilience. We agreed to meet the following week, to share our stories and build strength together. With each passing day, I learned more about the gravity of my situation. I kept my eyes peeled for signs of Lauren and Mark, gathering information about them. I noted their patterns, when they left the house, when they returned, the little quirks that once seemed harmless but now felt like daggers aimed at my heart. The confrontation at my apartment had unmasked not just the betrayal, but the lengths to which I would go to reclaim my truth. I even had my lawyer draft a letter to them, detailing my intentions to end our relationship according to law. Through it all, I focused on transforming my pain into power. In the dark moments, I reminded myself of the strength I had found within, the resolve that burned brighter with every step I took away from the ashes of my past. In the silence of my new, locked sanctuary, I realized I was no longer just a victim. I was a survivor, ready to thrive. I looked at the empty chair across the table, once filled by someone I trusted. "You think you can break me?" I whispered to the silence. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." As I stood there in the middle of my apartment, the weight of the world felt heavier than ever. The air was thick with tension from my earlier confrontation with Mark and Lauren. My hands shook as I turned my phone over in my palm, the screen flashing with a message from a friend offering support. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want comfort. I just needed to gather my thoughts and my strength. The drastic changes I made after the confrontation were a necessary step, but they felt surreal. I had changed the locks on my apartment, sealing off what had once felt like a safe haven. The very walls that held my laughter now echoed with betrayal, and the thought of Mark and Lauren stepping into my space again sent shivers down my spine. I had to take control, not just of my home, but of my life. I glanced at the mirrored wall where I often practiced my speeches, the very place where I had been so confident, so assured only weeks before. Now, I felt like a stranger looking in. That night, I had to find the courage to reclaim everything that felt lost. As I navigated this dark time, I also began reaching out. I wanted to find my voice again, and I knew sharing my experience could help others. I decided to gather a group of women who had faced their own betrayals, women who might need a nudge to reclaim their lives as I was trying to do. I called my friend Sarah, who was always supportive but had her own story of heartbreak. "Hey Sarah, I'm planning to host a meeting for women who've been through similar experiences. What do you think?" Her response was immediate, filled with warmth. "I love it. You're going to help so many people. I'll be there." Encouraged by her enthusiasm, I started drafting a flyer. The words flowed from my fingers as if I had been waiting for this moment to express myself. "You are not alone. Join us for support and empowerment," I wrote. Each word felt like a step towards healing. As I finished the flyer and printed several copies, I heard a knock on my door. My heart raced. I wasn't ready to face anyone just yet. Peering through the peehole, I saw Mrs. Caldwell from the apartment next door. The elderly woman had been my neighbor for years, always quick with a smile and a pot of soup when I was ill. "Olivia, dear, it's me. Can I come in?" Her voice was gentle, yet insistent. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. "Hi, Mrs. Caldwell." She stepped inside, her eyes scanning my apartment, the boxes piled up from my sudden change of locks, the flyers still scattered on the coffee table. "I heard some noise, and I wanted to check on you. You've been acting out of sorts lately." I forced a smile, but I could feel the facade slipping. "I've been through a lot, Mrs. Caldwell, just trying to figure things out." "Oh dear," she said, sitting down with a grace only years of experience could grant. "You know, I always say, when the world gets heavy, it's best to lighten the load with the right people around you. Are you doing that?" Her words dug into me. I had isolated myself since the confrontation, retreating into my own sadness. "I'm trying to find the right people," I admitted. "I'm organizing a meeting for women who've been hurt by betrayal. I hope that helps." Her eyes softened, and she nodded thoughtfully. "That's a wonderful idea, dear. You're going to inspire them, just as you've inspired me over the years." Her kind words were a balm to my frayed spirit. "Thank you, Mrs. Caldwell. It means a lot to me." As we talked, I unveiled some of my fears. What if I fail? What if they think I'm just being dramatic? "Sweetheart," she replied, "if you help even one person feel less alone, that's a victory. Share your strength, and you might find that you're not just healing others, but yourself too." After she left, I felt lighter, invigorated by a renewed sense of purpose. That evening, I decided to take a new step towards reclaiming my life. I needed to practice my speech for the meeting, so I stood before the mirror, my reflection steady this time. "This is your moment, Olivia," I whispered to myself. I envisioned the women I would address, the shared stories that would weave us closer together. I spoke to my reflection, finding each word gaining strength. Together, we can rise from betrayal. Together, we can reclaim our narratives. With each phrase, I felt like I was stepping further away from the shadows of betrayal and into the light of empowerment. My heart swelled with hope. I was finally ready to face the future. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across my living room, I felt a strange mix of anticipation and anxiety. My plan was finally coming together. With a gathering scheduled for the following Saturday, I spent every spare moment preparing. I wanted to create a safe space for women who, like me, had experienced betrayal and heartbreak. My heart raced at the thought of sharing my story, but I was determined to reclaim my narrative. By Wednesday evening, I sat alone at my kitchen table, surrounded by colorful flyers and a stack of scented candles. I had chosen lavender for its calming properties, something I desperately needed. My phone buzzed, interrupting my thoughts. It was a message from Sarah, a woman I had met at the coffee shop, who had reached out after hearing about my plans. "Hey, Emily, can I bring a friend to your gathering? I think she could really use this." I smiled at the words, a warmth spreading through me. "Of course, the more the merrier. I want to make sure everyone feels welcome." "Great, see you soon," she replied. I sighed in relief. The thought of having a few more faces in the room felt reassuring. I was not just fighting for myself, I was fighting for all of us. As the days passed, I found myself haunted by memories of Mark and Lauren. I remembered the laughter we shared, the dinners at our favorite restaurants, and the countless moments that now felt tainted. A knot twisted in my stomach. I recalled the email from Mark that confirmed everything I feared. They had plotted behind my back, weaving a web of lies that I almost fell into. But I refused to stay trapped. On Friday, as I stocked up on snacks and drinks for the gathering, I received a text from Lauren, of all people. It was as if she sensed my vulnerability. "Hey, Emily, I was wondering if you'd want to grab coffee. I feel like we should talk." I stood frozen in the middle of the grocery aisle, staring at my phone. Talk? What could she possibly want to say? It felt like an insult after everything. I wanted to scream, to throw my phone against the wall, to tell her to forget it and just leave me alone. But instead, I took a deep breath and deliberately tapped out a reply. "I'm busy. I have plans this weekend." A few minutes later, my phone chimed again. "I get that, but I think it would be good for both of us. Can we at least try?" I knew what she wanted, to manipulate the narrative, to paint herself as the victim. But I was done being manipulated. I wouldn't let her sidetrack me. "No, Lauren, I need to focus on myself right now," I replied firmly. The response came quickly. "Okay, if you change your mind, let me know." I sighed, tossing my phone onto the couch. I was no longer interested in her games. I had enough on my plate, and I was ready to begin healing. Saturday arrived faster than I expected, the air buzzing with energy. As I set up the small community center room, I felt a nervous flutter in my stomach. Chairs were arranged in a circle, creating an inviting space. I lit the lavender candles, their scent gently wafting through the air. Despite the calm atmosphere, doubts crept in. Would anyone show up? Would I be able to share my story without breaking down? As the time approached, I heard the sounds of chatter and laughter from outside the door. My heart raced, and I took a moment to gather myself. This was it. No regrets. One by one, women began to file in, each of them carrying their own stories of betrayal and resilience. There was Sarah, of course, along with a couple of her friends, and several others I didn't recognize. They exchanged smiles, and for a moment, it felt like we were kindred spirits. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice slightly trembling. "I know it takes strength to share our experiences, especially when we've been hurt, but together we can find healing." I looked around, locking eyes with a woman in the back who seemed particularly apprehensive. I want everyone to feel safe and supported here. We all have a voice, and it deserves to be heard. As the evening unfolded, we shared our stories, some heartbreaking, some empowering, but all filled with a sense of dignity. I felt the weight of my past start to lift, replaced with something far more powerful: connection. After a few brave souls spoke up, I felt a surge of courage. Not long ago, I found out that my husband was cheating on me with someone I trusted, I admitted, my heart racing. But I realized I am not alone in this. We are not defined by our pain. We can reclaim our stories and help each other rise. Tears glistened in their eyes, and I could see them nodding in agreement. It was cathartic to embrace honesty, to unearth the truths we had buried. We opened up discussions about boundaries, self-love, and reclaiming our identities. Toward the end of the gathering, one woman stood up, her voice shaking. "I feel empowered just being here. Thank you, Emily, for creating this space for us." Cheers of agreement filled the room, and I could hardly believe it. In that moment, I knew that my pain had transformed into purpose. Together, we were not just survivors, we were warriors. As I looked around at the faces illuminated by candlelight, I felt a sense of pride swell within me. I wasn't just sharing my story, I was helping to spark a movement. I knew I had the strength to rebuild my life and help others do the same. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to face it head on. This was just the beginning. A golden hue across the sky. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my blouse for the umpteenth time. I could feel my heart racing, a mix of excitement and anxiety swirling within me. This was it, the first meeting of the support group I had decided to start for women who had experienced betrayal. It was a daring leap, one that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As I made my way to the community center, I replayed the moment in my mind when I had made the decision. It was after that fateful confrontation with Mark and Lauren, when every taunting word they exchanged felt like a knife to my heart, digging in deeper with each betrayal. I had felt so small then, but now I was determined to rise. The community center had a homely feel, with warm lighting and soft music playing in the background. I arrived early to set up the chairs in a circle, envisioning a safe space where we could share and heal. Each chair was a promise of solidarity, of understanding, and of strength. As the clock ticked closer to the start time, I felt a wave of doubt wash over me. What if no one showed up? What if I had misjudged the need for such a group? Just as those thoughts threatened to consume me, Sarah walked in, a beacon of encouragement. "Hey, Olivia," she called, her voice bright. "I brought some snacks." She held up a tray of cookies, and I couldn't help but smile. "Thank you. You always know how to lighten the mood," I replied, grateful for her presence. As if my thoughts had conjured them, one by one, women began to filter in. They were strangers, yet somehow familiar. Each had a story etched in their eyes, an unspoken bond forming before a word was even spoken. "Hi, I'm Liv," I introduced myself as everyone settled into their chairs. I wanted to create this space where we can share our stories and support one another. Emily, a woman with kind eyes and an air of quiet strength, spoke up first. "I'm here because my husband, well, he betrayed me with my best friend." Her voice trembled slightly, but she held her head high. I've felt so lost since that day. The room was thick with unspoken pain. Yet, I felt an undercurrent of solidarity. It was as if we were all connecting through the weight of our experiences, ready to share our burdens. "I was blindsided too," I shared. "I thought I had everything figured out. Then, one day, I found out my husband was seeing someone else. It feels like a dream I can't wake up from." As I spoke, I noticed a woman with a determined expression in the back. Her name was Rita, and she joined in with a fierce tone. You think you know someone, and then they show you their true colors. It's like a slap in the face. I'm here to reclaim my life. Her words resonated deeply with everyone in the room. We spoke for hours, each story more heartbreaking and powerful than the last. There were tears, laughter, and moments of silence where shared understanding filled the air. Towards the end of the meeting, I felt the weight of my past lift, even if just a little. It was incredible to see how, in sharing, we were all finding pieces of ourselves again. This group wasn't just about recovery, it was about empowerment. Can we do this again? Emily asked, her courage shining through. Absolutely, I replied, my heart swelling with pride. Let's make this a monthly gathering. We'll grow together. As the women began to disperse, I felt a newfound sense of purpose. No longer was I just the victim of a betrayal. I was becoming a leader, a source of strength for others. Sarah pulled me aside, her eyes sparkling. I'm so proud of you, Liv. You created something beautiful here, she said, wrapping her arm around my shoulders. Thank you, Sarah. I couldn't have done it without you. I know we're going to help a lot of women. As we stepped out into the cool night air, I felt lighter, as if I had finally shed a layer of hurt. I was ready to face whatever came next, knowing I had the support of these incredible women. That night marked a turning point. I couldn't change the past, but I was ready to forge a new path ahead, one filled with courage, connection, and the promise of healing. In the weeks that followed, the group blossomed. Women came and went, sharing their stories, their laughs, and their tears. I saw the power of vulnerability turning into strength, and every meeting brought fresh resolve. Each time we gathered, I found more of my own strength shoring up, stitching together the wounds of betrayal until they began to feel more like badges of honor than marks of shame. And so I decided my journey wasn't just about healing myself. It was about reaching out and lifting others along the way. I was no longer just Olivia. I was a warrior, standing tall, my heart wide open, ready to embrace life anew. As I stood on the stage, the warm glow of the lights enveloped me, a stark contrast to the shadows I had fought so hard to escape. The room was filled with women, their eyes reflecting a mix of hope and determination. Each chair held a story, and each heart beat with the shared understanding of betrayal and resilience. I sensed the weight of their expectations. After all I had been through, this moment felt surreal yet empowering. The applause washed over me like a wave, a sound that seemed to drown out the ghosts of my past. I took a deep breath and began speaking. Thank you all for being here tonight. Your presence is a testament to the strength we share as women. My voice was steady, resolve infusing each word, even as my heart raced. The audience listened intently as I shared my journey, from the pain of betrayal, first from Mark, then from Lauren, to the pivotal transformation I had undergone. When I discovered the truth, I felt lost, I continued. The betrayal shattered my world. But instead of allowing it to define me, I chose to rise. Each of you has the power to turn your pain into purpose. After my speech, a woman approached me, her eyes brimming with tears. Emily, your story resonated with me. I've been through something similar, and I felt so alone. But hearing you, it gives me hope. I embraced her gently, feeling the warmth of her vulnerability. You're not alone. We're all in this together, I assured her, my heart swelling with the mission I had embraced. As the evening unfolded, stories flowed, each one raw and real. Some spoke of betrayal, others of neglect, but all echoed a shared resilience. We laughed together, cried together, and in those moments, healing began to take root. Later that night, as the event wound down and we began to pack up, a familiar face appeared in the doorway. It was Lauren. I felt a surge of emotions, anger, betrayal, and even a strange sense of pity. The last thing I expected was for her to show up here after everything that had happened. Can I talk to you? She asked, her voice shaky. What do you want, Lauren? I replied, crossing my arms. You've already done enough. I know I messed up. I didn't think it would go this far, she admitted, her eyes darting around the room, avoiding contact. I thought I could fix everything. Fix what, exactly? Your lies? Your betrayal? I shot back, my voice rising. All the hurt I had bottled up surged forth. You don't get to walk in here and act like you care now. She sighed, guilt evident on her face. I was scared, Emily. Mark made me feel like I had to choose between loyalty to him and our friendship. I didn't want to lose either. There it was again, the manipulation. This isn't about you, Lauren. This is about the damage you caused. You were supposed to be my friend. Her eyes widened. I know, I regret it every day. Please, just hear me out. I found something out about Mark, something I couldn't tell you before. I raised an eyebrow, curious despite myself. What do you mean? He's been lying to both of us. He has a whole other life. Stop, I interrupted, frustrated. After everything, why should I believe you now? She took a deep breath and leaned closer, her voice lowering. Because I want to make it right. I can help you. I know where he's been going. I have proof. For a moment, I stood there, torn between disbelief and the glimmer of truth. But in the end, I had learned to trust my instincts. I'll think, I said, walking away. The next few weeks were tumultuous. I'd changed the locks on my doors and focused on the women who had joined me in rebuilding their lives. I held more gatherings, sharing strength and strategies for growth. Then came the court date. The tension was palpable as I sat there, heart pounding. The courtroom filled with hushed whispers from those who had gathered to witness the truth unfold. I watched as Mark and Lauren entered, their faces masked with a concoction of arrogance and fear. As the judge listened to the testimonies, I felt a surge of empowerment. It was not just about my story. It was about every woman who had been silenced. When it was my turn to speak, I stood tall, my voice unwavering. I shared my truth, detailing the lies that had woven themselves into my life. With every word, I felt the chains of betrayal lift. The judge's steady gaze reassured me, a reminder that truth would always rise. The verdict echoed in my ears. I had won. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of recovery, but it marked a monumental step in reclaiming my life. As I stepped out of the courthouse, the sun hit my face, warm and affirming. I felt a wave of freedom wash over me. I had found my strength, and I was ready to help others discover theirs too. In that moment, I realized that betrayal might shake us, but it doesn't have to break us. We have the power to rise, to heal, and to create a community of support and love. And together, we would embrace our new beginnings.